back to December of 1998. I had given up smoking 15 years prior and was diagnosed with cancer in my left lung, a small tumor. It took a couple of months for them to take all the tests, and then I wanted a second opinion. But the bottom line was that I was being treated at the Carmonas Cancer Center, and they decided that they would go in and take that tumor out. Well, like most people who first learn they have cancer, I had been so devastated when I heard about it. The only thing I could think of was getting rid of this terrible thing from my body. So I agreed to go ahead with the surgery. When I came out of surgery, I was told that they had to remove the entire lung. They said that the tumor was wrapped around the aorta and the bronchia, and that there were lymph nodes in the lung that were affected, and that they couldn't even save one of the lobes, so they had to go ahead and take the whole thing out. However, I was also told that I should be okay, just go home and heal and everything will be fine, which I did, and everything was fine for about 9 months. And even though I had found something called SAIT, and I was taking that religiously for about 5 months, I was then diagnosed with another tumor in my right lung. Not knowing about cantron, which I will regret to my dying day, but that's the way things crumble, I had no other option but to have them go ahead and start chemo and radiation on my right lung. I heard about cantron at almost the same time as I was planned to have the chemo and radiation. My daughter brought home a part bottle from someone, and I started taking it even though I didn't have the privilege of coming to a meeting or talking to other people or knowing anything about it. So I took it during the time that I took my radiation and chemotherapy. I think it did help with my radiation in that I had no burns. And I've seen people horribly burnt with radiation to the point where their skin is actually bleeding. It did have a residual effect in that I went into terrible fibrillation at one point, and I now have to have a pacemaker because the radiation was very close to my heart. Anyway, I did take radiation. I had 33 treatments, and in between I had some chemotherapy, and I was getting so sick that I could barely get out of bed in the morning. Taking radiation 5 days a week and going down to the hospital and getting into a gown and sitting there with other people that are also in gowns and have no hair made me feel like cattle waiting to be branded. And that was such an emotional thing for me to go through that I got to a point where I told my family I was going to stop treatment. And my oncologist got very upset with me. He said, "You still have a 2.5 by 3 centimeter tumor there." I said, "If you couldn't get rid of that tumor, which wasn't very large to begin with all of the 33 radiation treatments and all the chemo you've given me, then I'm going to give something else a chance to get rid of it." And my doctor asked me what it was I was doing, and I told him I was on an alternate therapy that was called cantron. So he said, "Will you come back for your checkup in 3 months?" I said, "I'd love to. I'm glad you didn't throw me out when I told you about it." And in 3 months, he said, "Well, we're still seeing some scar tissue." And I went back in 3 more months, which was 6 months from the time I stopped treatment, and he said, "We're not seeing anything at all." So I have kept my right lung healthy. I do stay on cantron. I take it maybe 3 times a day. I had stopped taking it for a while and showed up with some nodes on my liver. Now I take it more regularly, and I don't even go back to the oncologist because each time I do, they want to do x-rays, they want to do CAT scans, and I've had enough radiation to last me for the rest of my life. I won't even let the dentist x-ray my teeth any more often than is absolutely necessary.